Somebody say amen. I don't know who this word is for, but I came to tell somebody today, your pain is not in vain. Your tears are not wasted. Your struggles are not without purpose. See, we live in a world where pain makes us question everything. We ask, why me, Lord? Why am I going through this? Why does it hurt so bad? But let me tell you something. God never allows pain without purpose. Pain is a signal, not a sentence. It's not a death sentence. It's a wake-up call. God is shifting you. God is breaking something off of you. He is preparing you for something greater. Somebody shout, God's plan is bigger than your problem. You see, when Joseph was thrown into the pit by his own brothers, it felt like betrayal. But God had a plan. When David was running from Saul, hiding in caves, it felt like rejection, but God had a plan. When Jesus hung on that cross, it looked like defeat, but God had a plan. Somebody say, God has a plan. The process prepares you for the promise. You want the blessing, but are you willing to endure the process? You want the anointing, but are you willing to go through the crushing? God is not punishing you, He is positioning you. Pain pushes you into purpose. Some of you are too comfortable where you are, and God has to shake you up. He has to let you feel the discomfort so that you will move into your next season. The pain is pushing you into something greater. Pain is a signal, not a sentence. It is not the end of your story. It is a message from God that something greater is on the way. Too often we see pain as a punishment, as if God has abandoned us or is angry with us. But I came to tell you today that your pain is not your prison. It is not your final destination. It is a tool that God is using to move you, shape you, and prepare you for what is next. Think about it. When a woman is in labor, the pain is not a sign of death. It is a sign that something is about to be born. The contractions hurt, the pressure increases, and it feels like the body is being torn apart, but the pain is not there to destroy her. It is there to bring forth something new. Somebody needs to hear this today. Your pain is a contraction, not a coffin. It is not there to bury you. It is there to birth you. God allows pain to get our attention. When everything is comfortable, when life is easy, we tend to settle. We stay in places that no longer serve us. We hold on to relationships that God has already called us out of, and we resist the changes that are necessary for our growth. But pain will make you move. Pain will make you pray like you never prayed before. Pain will push you into your purpose. Look at the life of Moses. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, surrounded by luxury and comfort. But when he saw his people suffering, something inside of him shifted. That pain awakened something in him. It made him step into his calling. Had he stayed comfortable in the palace, he would have never become the deliverer of Israel. His pain was a signal. It was God's way of telling him, it's time to move. Some of you are feeling pain right now. You're wondering, why am I going through this? Why does it hurt so much? But what if I told you that the pain is actually a sign that God is doing something in your life? What if I told you that the pain is evidence that God is shifting you, growing you, and preparing you for your next season? See, pain is not an indicator that you are finished. It is a signal that something is about to change. God will use pain to separate you from what is no longer meant for you. Sometimes we hold on to things that are beneath the level God is trying to take us to. We hold on to relationships, jobs, and situations that God has been telling us to let go of. But when we won't let go voluntarily, pain will force us to move. The pain of betrayal, the pain of rejection, the pain of disappointment, it all hurts. But it all serves a purpose. Joseph's brothers betrayed him and sold him into slavery. That was painful. But if Joseph had never been thrown into that pit, he would have never made it to the palace. The very thing that caused him pain was the thing that positioned him for purpose. You may not see it now, but the pain you're experiencing is pushing you closer to your destiny. What the enemy meant for evil, God is turning around for your good. You cannot let pain paralyze you. Too many people allow pain to stop them, to silence them, to hold them back. But if you understand that pain is only a signal, then you will recognize that you are not stuck. You are in transition. You are on the verge of something greater. The enemy wants you to believe that the pain means it's over. But I came to tell you that the pain means God is up to something. So don't quit. Don't give up. Don't let the pain make you doubt God's plan. Instead, let it push you closer to Him. Let it refine you. Let it strengthen you. Let it remind you that God is still in control. Because pain is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning of something greater. What you see as a crisis, God sees as construction for your destiny. Too often when we face challenges, we assume that something has gone wrong, that we've missed a step, or that we are being punished. But I want to tell you today, your problem is not bigger than God's plan. No matter what you're going through, no matter how heavy the burden feels, God's plan is still in motion. He is still working, still orchestrating, still leading you toward the place He has prepared for you. God does not operate on our timeline. We like things to be quick, easy, and painless. But God's plan is bigger than just making us comfortable. He is more concerned about our character than our convenience. He is more focused on preparing us for the promise than just handing it to us. And sometimes that means He allows struggles, He allows delays, He allows setbacks, not to destroy us, but to develop us. What looks like a setback to you is actually a setup for something greater. Look at the story of Joseph. God gave him a dream of greatness, a vision of leadership and influence. But before he ever stepped into that promise, he had to go through betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and prison. To the natural eye, it looked like his life was falling apart. It looked like every problem that came his way was pulling him further from his destiny. But what he didn't know was that every single problem was part of God's plan. If Joseph had never been betrayed, he would have never been sold. If he had never been sold, he would have never ended up in Egypt. If he had never been falsely accused, he would have never been placed in prison. And if he had never been in prison, he would have never met the person who would bring him before Pharaoh. Every problem was a piece of God's puzzle. Every obstacle was actually an opportunity. Every challenge was positioning him for the promise. You see, we only have a limited view of our lives. We see the pain, the hardship, the struggle, but God sees the whole picture. He sees where you are and where He is taking you. He knows that what you are going through right now is necessary to build you, to strengthen you, to prepare you. You may feel like you're stuck, but God is saying, I'm still working. You may feel like you've lost time, but God is saying, I'm aligning everything perfectly. You may feel like your situation is too messy, but God is saying, this is part of the construction process. Think about a house under construction. Before the beautiful structure can stand, there is a season of breaking, of tearing down, of digging deep. If you walk by that site in the middle of construction, it wouldn't look beautiful. It would look chaotic. It would look unfinished. But that doesn't mean the house isn't coming together. It simply means that it's not finished yet. And the same is true for your life. What looks like destruction is actually preparation. What looks like delay is actually divine timing. What looks like a crisis is actually God's way of laying the foundation for your future. When the Israelites were standing in front of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army chasing them from behind, it looked like a dead end. It looked like the plan had failed, but God's plan was bigger than their problem. What they saw as an obstacle, God saw as an opportunity to reveal His power. He made a way where there was no way, and He will do the same for you. You may not understand why you're going through this season, but trust this. God's plan has not changed. His promises have not expired. His purpose for your life is still in motion. So don't let the problem make you doubt the plan. Don't let the challenge make you forget the promise. God is not done yet. He is working even when you can't see it. And when the time is right, you will look back and realize that every single problem was part of the process, and every obstacle was leading you straight into your destiny. The process prepares you for the promise. We love the idea of the promise, the vision of what God has spoken over our lives, the dream of where we are going, but what we don't always embrace is the process it takes to get there. God does not drop promises into our laps without preparation. He does not take us straight to the mountaintop without first leading us through the valley. Before you can step into what He has for you, you must go through the process that makes you ready for it. So many people want the blessing but don't want the breaking. They want the anointing but don't want the crushing. But God will never give you a promise you are not prepared to handle. He will never elevate you to a place where your character cannot sustain you. The process is what makes you ready. The process is what builds the strength of faith and the endurance you will need when you reach your destiny. Without the process, the promise would crush you instead of bless you. Look at the story of David. He was anointed to be king, but he didn't step into the throne immediately. No, he went through a process. Before he ever wore a crown, he had to fight battles. Before he ever ruled a kingdom, he had to run for his life. Before he ever sat on the throne, he had to sleep in caves. God had already declared that David would be king. But He allowed David to go through a process to make him into the leader he needed to be. The struggles, the betrayals, the battles, all of it was preparing him for his destiny. And the same is true for you. You are in a process right now, and it may not feel good. You may be facing obstacles, setbacks, and delays. You may be wondering why things are taking so long, why you're going through so much pain. But trust this. God is using every moment, every challenge, and every hardship to shape you into the person who can carry the promise. He is stretching you, refining you, and strengthening you so that when the door opens, you will be ready to walk through it. When you look at gold, it doesn't come out of the ground shining and beautiful. It has to go through the fire. It has to be refined, melted down, and purified before it becomes valuable. And that's exactly what God does with us. He puts us through the fire, not to destroy us, but to refine us. The fire burns away the impurities. The fire removes everything that is not like Him. The fire prepares us for the Some of you are in that refining season right now. You feel like the heat has been turned up in your life. You feel like you're being stretched beyond your limit. You feel like you're being tested in ways you never imagined. But I want to encourage you today. This is not the end. This is part of the process. This is not God punishing you. This is God preparing you. If you can endure the fire, if you can hold on through the struggle, if you can stay faithful even when it's hard, you will come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and ready for what God has promised you. Joseph had a dream of greatness, but before he saw that dream come to pass, he had to go through betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. God was not delaying his promise. He was developing him for the promise. If Joseph had gone straight from being a shepherd boy to being second in command of Egypt, he wouldn't have been ready. He wouldn't have had the wisdom, the strength, or the character to handle the responsibility. But because he endured the process, because he allowed God to shape him through every trial, he was ready when the moment came. So don't despise the process. Don't fight against the preparation. The very thing that feels like it's breaking you is actually building you. The struggle is strengthening you. The waiting is working for your good. The trials are transforming you into the person God has called you to be. If you can trust Him through the process, you will step into the promise fully prepared, fully equipped, and fully able to handle the blessing He has for you. Pain pushes you into purpose. Nobody likes pain. Nobody wakes up in the morning and prays for struggle, heartbreak, or disappointment. But if you look back over your life, you will realize that some of the most powerful changes, the biggest breakthroughs, and the most significant moments of growth happen because of pain. Pain has a way of shaking us, of waking us up, of moving us from where we are to where we are meant to be. God never wastes pain. If He allows you to go through something, there is a reason behind it. Sometimes pain is the only thing that will push you out of your comfort zone. If everything was easy, if everything always went the way you planned, you would never stretch, you would never grow, and you would never step into the fullness of your calling. But pain forces you to move. It forces you to pray like never before. It forces you to lean on God in ways you never had to before. Look at Moses. He was living comfortably in Pharaoh's palace, enjoying the privileges of Egyptian royalty. But the moment he saw his people suffering, something inside of him shifted. The pain of watching his people in bondage stirred up something in him. It awakened his purpose. If Moses had never felt that pain, he might have stayed in the palace forever. But the pain he witnessed pushed him to take action, to step into his calling, to lead God's people to freedom. Some of you are experiencing pain right now, and you're wondering why. You're asking God, why am I going through this? Why does it have to be this hard? But what if I told you that the pain is actually a sign that you're being positioned for something greater? What if I told you that the very thing you're struggling with right now is the thing that is pushing you toward your destiny? Look at the story of Hannah. She was barren, unable to have children, and deeply grieved because of it. She cried out to God, pouring her heart out in desperation. Her pain was unbearable, but it was that very pain that pushed her into the presence of God. It was that pain that drove her to pray with such intensity that Eli the priest thought she was drunk. And because of that prayer, because of that desperation, God gave her Samuel, a prophet, a leader, a man of God who would change the course of Israel's history. Without the pain of barrenness, Hannah may have never sought God so passionately. Without the pain, she may have never birthed something so powerful. Sometimes the things that hurt us the most are the very things that reveal our true calling. Some of the greatest ministries have been birthed out of pain. Some of the most powerful testimonies have come from seasons of deep suffering. The pain you are experiencing is not random. It is the push that is launching you into your destiny. When a baby is born, the process of labor is intense. The mother feels pain like never before. Her body is under pressure and the contractions get stronger and closer together. But the pain is not a sign of death. It is a sign that something is about to be birthed. The pressure increases because the baby is getting ready to come forth. And the same is true in your life. The pain you are feeling is not there to destroy you. It is there to birth something new inside of you. Jesus himself experienced the ultimate pain on the cross. He was beaten, mocked, betrayed, and nailed to a cross. But his pain had a purpose. His suffering led to salvation. His crucifixion led to resurrection. If there was no cross, there would be no crown. If there was no suffering, there would be no victory. And if Jesus had to go through pain to fulfill his purpose, don't you think that your pain is also leading you somewhere greater? So don't despise the pain. Don't let it make you bitter, let it make you better. Don't let it break you, let it build you. The pain is not there to stop you, it is there to shift you. It is pushing you out of where you are and into the purpose God has for your life. If you hold on, if you trust God through it, if you refuse to quit, you will see that every tear, every struggle, and every moment of suffering was leading you straight into your pain is not permanent. When you're in the middle of suffering, it can feel like it will never end. When the weight of life presses down on you, when the burdens seem unbearable, when the nights feel endless, it's easy to believe that this pain is your new reality. But I came to tell you today, this is not how your story ends. Pain is temporary, but God's promises are eternal. Struggles may last for a season, but purpose lasts forever. What you are going through right now is not your final destination. It is just a chapter in your testimony. The enemy wants you to believe that the pain will last forever. He wants you to think that you will never heal, that you will never recover, that you will never come out of this. But the devil is a liar. The Word of God says in Psalm 35, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That means no matter how dark the night is, morning is on the way. No matter how heavy the burden feels, relief is coming. No matter how deep the hurt runs, healing is ahead. Look at Job. He lost everything, his wealth, his health, his family. He was in so much pain that he wished he had never been born. He didn't understand why he was suffering. He didn't see an end in sight. But what Job didn't know was that his pain had an expiration date. God had already marked the day when his suffering would turn into restoration. And in the end, Job received double for his trouble, twice the blessings, twice the joy, twice the favor. If he had given up in his pain, he would have never seen the promise. Some of you are in a Job season right now. You feel like you've lost too much, like you've cried too many tears, like you've been stuck in this pain for too long. But I came to encourage you. God is still in control. He has not forgotten about you. He has not abandoned you, and he has already set the time for your breakthrough. Pain often makes us think that God is silent, but just because he is quiet does not mean he is absent. Sometimes when a teacher is giving a test, they stop speaking not because they have left the classroom, but because they are watching to see how the student will respond. Could it be that God is watching to see if you will trust him in this season? Could it be that he is preparing to turn your test into a testimony? Think about a storm. When the rain is falling, when the winds are howling, when the sky is dark, it feels like the storm will never end. But storms don't last forever. Eventually the rain stops. Eventually the clouds break. Eventually the sun shines again. And the same is true for your life. This storm will pass. This pain will end. This trial will turn into triumph. When Jesus was on the cross, it looked like all hope was lost. His followers were grieving, his enemies were rejoicing, and the earth itself trembled in sorrow. But what they didn't understand was that Sunday was coming. On the third day, the stone was rolled away, and Jesus stepped out of the grave with all power in his hands. If death couldn't hold him, if the grave couldn't keep him down, then what makes you think your pain will be the end of your story? If Jesus could rise, then so can you. Some of the greatest testimonies come from people who refuse to give up in the middle of their pain. The most powerful breakthroughs come from those who held on, who trusted God even when it hurt, who kept believing even when they couldn't see a way out. And that's what God is calling you to do today. Hold on, keep the faith, stand firm in his promises, because your pain is not permanent. The season you are in right now is temporary, but the glory that is coming is eternal. So don't make a permanent decision based on a temporary situation. Don't let today's tears make you forget tomorrow's triumph. You may be in a valley now, but God is leading you to a mountaintop. You may be struggling today, but joy is on the horizon. What you are going through is not your end. It is just the setup for something greater. Your pain has an expiration date, but God's plan for you lasts forever. Your pain will turn into power. The very thing that was meant to break you, to destroy you, to make you give up, God is going to use it to elevate you. The pain you have endured, the struggles you have faced, the battles you have fought, they are not wasted. God is a master at taking what was meant for harm and using it for good. He turns wounds into wisdom, trials into triumphs, and scars into stories of victory. What you thought would leave you weak is actually making you stronger. What you thought would be the end of you is actually the beginning of something greater. Look at Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and locked away in prison. If anyone had a reason to be bitter, to give up, to believe that his pain was pointless, it was Joseph. But what happened? God took every single moment of pain and turned it into power. The very thing that was meant to destroy him became the thing that positioned him for purpose. The same brothers who betrayed him had to come back and bow before him. The same land where he suffered became the land where he ruled. And when he finally saw the big picture, he was able to say, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. God is going to do the same thing for you. The pain you've gone through is not the end of your story. It is the foundation for your breakthrough. Every tear you have cried, every sleepless night, every struggle, God is using it to birth something powerful inside of you. You are not just going through pain, you are being transfined by it. You are being shaped, refined, and strengthened for what is ahead. Think about a diamond. It doesn't start out shining. It doesn't begin as something valuable. It starts as a piece of coal buried deep in the ground. And do you know what makes it into a diamond? Pressure, extreme pressure. It is only after going through intense heat and pressure that the coal transforms into something beautiful, something priceless. And the same is true for you. The pressure you are under is not there to crush you. It is there to create something powerful inside of you. The fire you are walking through is not there to burn you. It is there to refine you. Jesus himself went through pain before he stepped into glory. Before the resurrection, there was the crucifixion. Before the victory, there was suffering. But the pain was not the end of his story, and it is not the end of yours either. What looked like defeat on Friday turned into triumph on Sunday. And if Jesus could rise from the grave, then surely you can rise from your situation. If Jesus could turn pain into power, then surely God can do the same thing in your life. Your testimony will come from the very thing that tried to take you out. The enemy thought that the pain would silence you, but instead it is going to give you a voice. The devil thought that the struggle would weaken you, but instead it is making you stronger. What you have endured is not just for you, it is for the people you are called to reach. Your pain is producing a testimony that will set others free. Your struggle is birthing a story that will bring hope to those who need it. Some of the most powerful people in the world are those who have walked through the deepest pain. The strongest warriors are those who have fought the hardest battles. The most impactful voices are those who have endured the greatest trials. And that is why you cannot give up. That is why you must keep pushing, keep believing, keep trusting. because God is turning your pain into power. One day you will look back at what you have been through and realize that it didn't break you, it built you. It didn't destroy you, it developed you. It didn't weaken you, it made you stronger. What once brought you to your knees in sorrow will one day bring you to your feet in victory. The pain that felt unbearable will one day be the very thing that fuels your purpose. So stand firm in the fire. Hold on in the storm. Keep believing even when you don't understand, because your pain is not in vain. Your suffering is not pointless. God is using it, shaping it, transforming it, and when it's all said and done, you will rise stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. Your pain will not be your prison, it will be your platform. Your pain will not be your defeat, it will be your destiny. Your pain will not be your end, it will be the very thing God uses to launch you into your purpose. Through every tear, through every trial, through every painful moment, God has been working. What you thought was meant to destroy you was actually designed to develop you. The pain you have endured was never wasted. It was always a part of His divine plan. Every setback, every disappointment, every heartache was shaping you, molding you, and preparing you for the promise He has spoken over your life. You may not understand it now. You may still be in the fire, still walking through the storm, still carrying the weight of the struggle. But trust this, God is not finished with you yet. He is the author of your story, and He does not write tragedies. The same God who turned Joseph's betrayal into a throne, the same God who turned Job's suffering into double blessings, the same God who turned the cross into resurrection, is the same God who is working in your life right now. So do not quit in the process. Do not give up in the pain. What you are facing today is not your final chapter. Your story is still being written. The night may be long, but morning is coming. The pain may be great, but purpose is greater. The suffering may be real, but so is the victory that is ahead. Hold on, trust God, and keep walking forward, because when you have pain, God has a plan, and His plan is always greater than anything you could ever imagine.